Dr. Elena Martinez stared at the repeating pattern on her monitor, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The signal had first appeared 3 days ago, and its perfect mathematical precision was unlike anything she'd encountered in her 15 years at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. "Run the analysis again, ARIA," she commanded the station's AI system, rubbing her tired eyes. The holographic display above her desk shimmered to life, showing a complex series of interlocking geometric patterns. "Analysis complete, Doctor." The signal maintains its mathematical consistency. It appears to be a form of communication using pure geometric progressions. Araya responded, its soft blue interface pulsing with each word. Alina leaned forward, her heart racing. After years of searching the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, this could be it. The pattern wasn't just complex. It was impossible to occur naturally. Each sequence built upon the last with crystalline precision, creating a mathematical symphony that stretched across space. "Contact Director Chen at the First Contact Initiative," she said, her voice steady despite her excitement. "And get me the latest positioning data on the signal's source." The signal's origin point was moving, deliberately and with purpose, directly toward our solar system. Within hours, the station's quiet research atmosphere transformed into a hub of intense activity. Scientists from every department crowded into the main observatory, their excited whispers filling the air as they watched the incoming data. Director Sarah Chen arrived by sunset, her usual composed demeanor showing cracks of anticipation. "Show me everything," Sarah commanded, standing beside Alina at the main console. Together, they watched as ARIA displayed the complete signal analysis. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered, watching the geometric patterns dance across the screen. "But something about it feels too perfect." Alina nodded, pulling up a secondary display. "That's what bothered me too. Look at this." She'd highlighted a section of the signal. "These aren't just random patterns. They're coordinates, Director. Extremely precise spatial coordinates." Sarah's expression darkened. "Military coordinates? We can't be certain, but..." Alina brought up a 3D map of their solar system. Each set of coordinates corresponds to key strategic points. Lagrange points, resource-rich asteroids, and, she paused, her finger hovering over Earth, major population centers. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their first contact with an alien civilization might not be the peaceful exchange they'd hoped for. "How long until they arrive?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Based on their current velocity, Alina checked the calculations. 72 hours. Sarah straightened her back, years of military training before her scientific career showing in her posture. "Begin emergency protocol Theta. I want every major observatory focused on their approach vector." And Alina, she turned to face the younger scientist, "Start working on a response message. Something that shows we understand their mathematical language but also demonstrates that we're more than just numbers and coordinates." As the room erupted into focused activity, Alina sat back at her console, her mind racing. The aliens, whoever they were, communicated through perfect mathematical sequences. But human mathematics had something theirs didn't. The beauty of chaos theory, of imperfect but fascinating patterns like the Fibonacci sequence in nature. She began composing Earth's first message to the approaching vessels, weaving in elements of human creativity within the mathematical framework. As she worked, a small alert appeared on her screen. The alien signals had changed. They were now transmitting what appeared to be a countdown. Earth's first contact with an advanced civilization was approaching rapidly, and Alina couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's greatest test was about to begin. She just hoped that what made us uniquely human, our ability to think outside perfect patterns, would prove to be our strength rather than our weakness. The first ships appeared at dawn, emerging from hyperspace in a display that left Earth's astronomers speechless. Their vessels resembled cut diamonds the size of cities, each facet catching and amplifying sunlight into prismatic cascades. The main observation deck of the International Space Station fell silent as the crew watched the crystalline armada arrange itself in a perfect geometric pattern above Earth's orbit. Commander David Chen stood at the ISS's primary viewport, his decorated military career offering no precedent for this moment. Status report on the Mercury observation probe, he requested, his calm voice masking growing concern. Feed incoming now, Commander, Lieutenant Pato responded, bringing up the holographic display. The images showed Mercury's surface transforming crystalline structures spreading across the planet like frost on a window. In less than an hour, the entire planet had become a perfectly geometric sphere, its surface a maze of interlocking crystal patterns. They didn't even send a warning, David murmured, watching the recorded transformation. Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command. Before Pato could respond, every screen on the station flickered to life. The image that appeared was both beautiful and unsettling, a being that seemed to be made entirely of living crystal, its form shifting between geometric patterns as it spoke. People of Earth, the crystalline figure announced, its voice a harmony of mathematical frequencies. We are the luminary, harbingers of perfect harmony. Your solar system has been selected for integration into our empire of order. Resistance is mathematically impossible. David noticed something odd about the transmission. Each movement the alien made followed precise angles, each gesture calculated to mathematical perfection. Even their speech patterns adhered to strict geometric progressions. The luminary continued, "We have demonstrated our power on your Mercury. This gift of perfection awaits all planets in your system. Your species will be uplifted, your chaotic biological forms refined into crystalline perfection." Elena Martinez's voice cut in through David's private comm channel. "Commander, are you seeing this? Their entire communication is structured like a complex equation. Every word, every movement, it's all following the same patterns we detected in their initial signals." "Send me your analysis," David replied, watching as more luminary ships emerged from hyperspace, arranging themselves in fractal patterns around Earth. There has to be a weakness in all this perfection. The main luminary transmission continued. "Your planet has 24 Earth hours to prepare for preliminary crystallization. This process is optimal. This process is inevitable. This process is perfection." David's tactical display lit up as the crystalline ships began synchronizing their positions. Each vessel moved with precise, predictable efficiency, creating complex geometric formations that were both beautiful and terrifying. "Commander," Elena's voice returned, urgent now. "I've been analyzing their ship movements. Everything they do is based on perfect mathematical equations. There's no randomness, no adaptation. It's like they're incapable of deviation from their patterns." David watched as a small piece of space debris struck one of the luminary ships. Instead of adapting its course naturally, the vessel performed a complex series of precise maneuvers to return to its exact predetermined position. "Dr. Martinez," he said, "an idea forming. What would happen if we introduced some chaos into their perfect equations?" "Their initial signals nearly broke our computers because they were too perfect," Elena replied, catching on to his thinking. "Their minds might work the same way. Too much randomness could disrupt their processing patterns." David smiled for the first time since the ships appeared. "Get me Earth Defense Command. I think we just found our first advantage. The luminary wants a perfect humanity, but our imperfection might be exactly what saves us." As he turned from the viewport, David caught a glimpse of another Mercury observation feed. The crystallized planet glittered with inhuman perfection, a stark reminder of what Earth would become if they failed. They had 24 hours to prove that humanity's chaotic nature was worth preserving. In the underground command center beneath Geneva, Dr. Elena Martinez paced before a wall of holographic displays showing the luminary fleet's formations. 18 hours remained before their deadline, and she hadn't slept since noticing the pattern in their movements. "Play it again, ARIA," she commanded, watching as the AI system replayed footage of the luminary ships avoiding space debris. "Slow it down to quarter speed." The crystalline vessels moved with mathematical precision, each adjustment following perfect geometric angles. No matter the obstacle, they always returned to exact positions within their formation, like atoms arranging themselves in a crystal lattice. "Dr. Martinez," Aria's calm voice interrupted her thoughts. "Commander Chen's shuttle is approaching the facility." Minutes later, David Chen strode into the command center, still in his ISF flight suit. Tell me you found something we can use, he said, joining Alina at the displays. Better than that, she replied, pulling up a new simulation. I think I found their fundamental weakness. Watch this. She overlaid a pattern of random movements onto the luminary ship's trajectories. Where the patterns intersected, the aliens' formations showed microscopic delays in their responses. They're not just following perfect patterns, Elena explained, highlighting the delays. They're incapable of processing anything that doesn't fit their mathematical models. It's like trying to divide by zero in their crystal computing systems. David leaned closer to the display, his expression intense. How can we use this? Before Alina could answer, a small alert appeared on their screens. A single civilian vessel, the private yacht Star Dancer, had broken formation from the evacuation fleet. Its pilot, instead of following designated escape routes, was performing what appeared to be improvised dance maneuvers through space. What are they doing? David demanded, reaching for the communication controls. Alina grabbed his arm, stopping him. Wait, look at the luminary response. The crystal ships near the yacht were struggling to maintain their formation. As the Star Dancer spun and weaved in unpredictable patterns, the alien vessel's movements became increasingly rigid, their attempts to compensate growing more exaggerated. They can't predict where the yacht will go next, Alina whispered, excitement building in her voice. Their systems are designed for perfect order, but human movement naturally incorporates tiny imperfections. Every microsecond of randomness compounds their processing delays. David watched as more civilian ships, inspired by the Star Dancer's success, began breaking from their evacuation paths. Each one moved differently, some spinning, others weaving in irregular patterns. The luminary fleet's perfect formation started showing signs of strain. Get me the Earth Defense Fleet, David ordered, a plan forming in his mind, and find me every pilot who's ever done aerial acrobatics, stunt flying, or experimental maneuvers. Alina was already pulling up personnel files. What are you thinking? The Luminary expect us to fight like they do, with precision and predictable tactics, David explained, a slight smile forming. Instead, we're going to show them something they've never seen before, human creativity in motion. He turned to address the command center staff. Send word to every ship we have. Training protocols are suspended. I want every pilot to fly like they're dancing, like they're creating art in space. No patterns, no standard formations. Just pure human expression. Alina added another simulation to the display, showing potential outcomes. If we can generate enough chaos in their vicinity, their entire command and control structure could begin to fracture. They're not just vulnerable to our randomness, they're completely unprepared for it. As they watched, the Star Dancer completed another impossible spin and 3 more luminary ships visibly struggled to compute a response. In their perfect crystalline minds, such movement shouldn't exist. Yet here was humanity, turning space combat into an improvised ballet. Send a message to that yacht's pilot, David said, heading for the door. Tell them they just showed us how to fight back. Now get me a ship. It's time to show the luminary that perfection isn't everything. The main auditorium of the Sydney Opera House had never hosted a performance quite like this. Instead of an audience, the seats were filled with servers and broadcasting equipment. On stage, jazz legend Marcus Thompson sat at his piano, his fingers dancing across the keys in an improvised melody that would never be played the same way twice. Dr. Elena Martinez stood in the control room, monitoring the effect of the music on the luminary ships overhead. The frequency variations are working, she reported into her comm unit. Their crystal structures are resonating with the mathematical inconsistencies in the jazz improvisation. Across the globe, similar scenes were unfolding. In Mumbai, classical Indian dancers performed spontaneous movements while their motions were translated into spatial coordinates. In Rio de Janeiro, a street art festival had been transformed into a military operation, with abstract painters creating massive chaotic patterns that were being digitized and broadcast into space. Energy fluctuations detected in the luminary fleet, Araya announced, displaying real-time footage of the crystalline ships. Their usually perfect surfaces were showing subtle ripples, like pond water disturbed by random raindrops. Commander Chen's voice crackled through the comm system from his position on the Emergency Space Command Station. The disruption is working, but they're adapting. We need more complexity, more layers of unpredictability. Elena turned to her team. Initiate Phase 2 of Project Rainbow. Connect all broadcasting stations. Let's show them what human creativity really means. Across every continent, the carefully coordinated chaos began. In London, a children's finger painting session was scanned and converted into spatial algorithms. In Kenya, Maasai dancers' movements were transformed into combat maneuvers for Earth's defense drones. Every human expression of creativity became a weapon against the luminaries' rigid perfection. In orbit, David watched as the first wave of defense drones approached the alien fleet. Each drone's movement pattern was based on a different art form. Some moved like ballet dancers, others like abstract expressionist brushstrokes come to life. The luminary ship's responses became increasingly erratic as they tried to predict the unpredictable. "Helena," David called through the comm. "Something's happening to their ship's surface structure." The crystalline vessels were beginning to display impossible colors, their surfaces refracting light in ways that defied their original perfect geometry. Some of the smaller ships had started moving in slightly irregular patterns, as if their rigid control systems were beginning to crack under the strain of processing so much chaos. Back in Sydney, Marcus Thompson's jazz improvisation reached a crescendo, his music merging with performances from around the world. The combined broadcast created a symphony of controlled chaos that bore directly into the heart of the luminary fleet. "Their command ship is showing signs of structural instability," Elena reported, excitement creeping into her voice. "The crystalline matrix can't maintain perfect order while processing all these random inputs." David smiled as he watched a group of drones performing what looked like a space-based interpretation of the Jackson Pollock painting. "They expected us to fight back with missiles and lasers," he said. "Instead, we're showing them the one thing their perfect civilization never developed: art." Suddenly, the largest luminary vessel began emitting pulses of multicolored light. Its crystal surface vibrated with new patterns that broke from its original geometric perfection. For a moment, the ship's form shifted into something that looked almost beautiful in its imperfection. "Elena," David called, his voice urgent but hopeful. "Are you seeing this? I don't think we're just disrupting their systems anymore. We might be teaching them something new." As the combined creative energy of humanity continued to broadcast into space, more luminary ships began showing signs of change. Their perfect formations started to dissolve, not into chaos, but into something between order and randomness, a dance of crystals and light that seemed to bridge the gap between their two civilizations. Commander David Chen had never seen anything quite like the spectacle unfolding before him through the viewport of his command vessel. The Earth Defense Fleet, now fully embracing their new strategy, moved through space like a cosmic ballet company. Each ship captain had been paired with a different dance academy on Earth, their movements guided by real-time performances happening on the surface below. "Battle Group Alpha, follow the Bolshoi Ballet's lead," he ordered, watching as a squadron of interceptors spun and weaved in perfect synchronization with Moscow's finest dancers. "Battle Group Beta, take your cues from the Brazilian capoeira transmission." The luminary fleet's response was fascinating to watch. Their previously rigid formations had begun to fragment, crystal surfaces rippling with rainbow refractions as they attempted to track the humans' artistic maneuvers. Some of their smaller vessels had started moving in ways that seemed almost experimental. "David, are you seeing this?" Elena's voice came through his private channel. Her excitement was palpable even through the comm static. The luminary ships near the Korean traditional dancers' influence zone are beginning to move in flowing patterns. They're not just being disrupted anymore, they're trying to dance back. He adjusted his view to focus on that sector. Sure enough, a cluster of crystalline ships was moving in graceful arcs that bore no resemblance to their original geometric patterns. Their surfaces pulsed with colors that followed the rhythm of the Korean drums being broadcast from Seoul. "RIA, analyze those movement patterns," Elena commanded. The AI's response came quickly, detecting a 47% deviation from standard luminary flight protocols. These new patterns appear to be voluntary adaptations rather than system malfunctions. Lieutenant Sarah Paddle's voice cut through the command channel. "Sir, The main Luminary command ship is broadcasting a new signal. It's different from their previous communications. The transmission appeared on David's screen, and his eyes widened at what he saw. Instead of the perfectly geometric crystalline being they'd seen before, the Luminary commander's form was shifting, flowing between shapes in a way that almost seemed uncertain. Humans, the being spoke, its voice now carrying harmonic undertones that reminded David of wind chimes. Your method of combat is illogical, unpredictable, beautiful. The last words seemed to cause ripples across the commander's crystalline form. We are experiencing sensations that do not conform to any known parameters. Elena's voice was thoughtful as she responded, they're feeling emotion for the first time. Their perfect mathematical existence never allowed for it before. Our art isn't just confusing them, it's awakening something. David watched as more luminary ships began to break from their formations, their movements becoming increasingly fluid. Some are responding to the tango being broadcast from Argentina, their crystalline forms twisting in passionate spirals. Others seemed entranced by the improvisational jazz from New Orleans, their surfaces fracturing and reforming in syncopated patterns. All ships maintained the dance he ordered, a smile forming as he watched a particularly elegant maneuver inspired by Chinese ribbon dancers. But be ready for anything. We don't know how they'll handle these new experiences. The space between Earth and the Luminary fleet had become a swirling canvas of light and motion. Human ships wove between crystalline vessels in an improvised performance that defied traditional space combat doctrine. The Luminary, for their part, seemed to be discovering movement as an art form for the first time. Elena, David called, noticing a new pattern emerging among the largest Luminary vessels. I think they're trying to choreograph something of their own. Look at their flagship's movements. The massive crystalline command ship had begun a slow, deliberate sequence of movements that combined their original geometric precision with something new, creativity. Its crystal surface flowed like liquid glass, creating shapes that were mathematically perfect yet somehow expressed emotion. They were watching the birth of a new art form, one that bridged the gap between human chaos and luminary order. The dance of two civilizations, meeting somewhere in the middle of perfection and imperfection. The Sydney Opera House had transformed its entire structure into a massive broadcasting station. Inside, an unprecedented gathering of musicians from around the world sat ready, their instruments gleaming under the spotlight. There was no sheet music before them. This would be a performance guided purely by instinct and emotion. Dr. Elena Martinez stood at the conductor's podium, an unusual position for a scientist. But these were unusual times. She had discovered that the Luminary's crystalline structures responded most strongly to musical harmonies that shifted in unexpected ways. Operation Symphony is ready to commence, she spoke into her comm unit. Commander Chen, is the fleet in position? From his vantage point in orbit, David Chen watched as Earth's remaining ships arranged themselves in a loose, asymmetrical formation. Each vessel had been equipped with special resonance transmitters that would amplify the music from Earth. Fleet is ready, he confirmed. Though I never thought I'd be coordinating a battle strategy with a Philharmonic orchestra. Elena raised her hands, and in concert halls across the globe, other conductors mirrored her movement. Remember, she broadcast to all musicians, don't think about the notes. Feel them. The Luminary understand perfect mathematics. We need to show them something beyond mathematical precision. The first notes rose from a single violin in Sydney, joined by a jazz trumpet in New Orleans, then a traditional erhu in Beijing. The music built organically, each instrument joining the global symphony at the moment its player felt right. There was no score, no predetermined arrangement, just pure human musical intuition. In space, the effect was immediate. The Luminary ship's crystalline surfaces began to ripple and pulse with the music. Their perfectly ordered formations started to shift as the alien vessels responded to the unpredictable harmonies. Energy readings are fluctuating across their entire fleet, Lieutenant Patel reported. Their crystal matrices are resonating with the music's frequencies, but in ways our computers can't predict. David watched in amazement as the largest Luminary ships began to move in ways that seemed almost like they were swaying to the music. The smaller vessels around them started creating patterns that reminded him of visual music representations, sound waves made visible through crystalline architecture. They're not just hearing it. Elena's voice was filled with wonder as she continued conducting. They're trying to join in. The luminary ships began emitting harmonics of their own, perfect crystalline tones that should have clashed with the organic human music, but instead wove through it in surprising ways. Their vessels' movements became more fluid, more expressive, as if they were gradually learning to dance to this new rhythm. In Sydney, Elena felt tears in her eyes as she guided the orchestra through this unprecedented performance. The music had become a conversation between species, humanity's emotional expressiveness meeting the luminaries' mathematical precision to create something entirely new. Their command ship is broadcasting, Patel announced suddenly. The message that came through was unlike any previous luminary communication. Instead of the rigid, perfectly structured language they had used before, this message flowed like poetry. We have existed in perfect harmony for millennia, yet never knew what harmony truly meant until now. Your chaos brings colors we never knew existed. Your imperfection shows us possibilities we never imagined. We wish to learn more. David smiled as he watched the space around Earth transform into a cosmic concert hall, with human and luminary ships moving together in an improvisational dance while the music of two civilizations intertwined. Elena, he called down to Earth, I think we just taught a species of living crystals how to jam. The symphony continued to build, each moment bringing new surprises as humanity's greatest musicians played their hearts out. Their music carried on waves of emotion and creativity into the depths of space. And in response, the luminary fleet had become both audience and participant in the greatest concert the universe had ever seen. Something extraordinary was happening aboard the luminary command ship. The once rigid crystalline walls had begun flowing like liquid glass, forming patterns that defied their usual geometric precision. The ship's commander, who had never experienced disorder in their entire existence, watched their own reflection shift and ripple in the moving surfaces. On the Emergency Space Command Station, Commander David Chen received an unexpected request. Sir, Lieutenant Patel reported, her voice filled with surprise. The luminary commander is requesting permission to dock. They want to meet in person. David exchanged glances with Dr. Elena Martinez, who had recently arrived from Earth after the success of Operation Symphony. What do you think? He asked her. Could this be a trap? Elena studied the readings from the approaching crystalline vessel. Their ship's structure is completely different from anything we've seen before. These patterns, they're choosing to be unpredictable. I don't think they could go back to perfect order even if they wanted to. The docking procedure itself was a testament to the luminaries' transformation. Instead of the precise mechanical movements they had previously displayed, their ship approached with an almost graceful fluidity, like a dancer finding their own rhythm. When the airlock opened, the sight left everyone speechless. The luminary commander's crystalline form shifted through colors and shapes that seemed to express emotions they were only beginning to understand. Behind them stood other luminary, each one displaying unique patterns, their perfect uniformity replaced by individual expressions. We have existed for 10,000 years, the commander spoke, their voice carrying harmonics that reminded Elena of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. In all that time, we believed perfection was the ultimate goal. We were wrong. David stepped forward, maintaining a diplomatic posture, but unable to hide his fascination. Your ships, your people, they're all changing. Is this happening across your entire civilization? The commander's form rippled with what might have been excitement. The music, the art, the dance, they awakened something long dormant in our crystal matrices. We are discovering what you humans call creativity. Some of our ships now move in ways our ancient programming never intended. It is beautiful. Elena moved closer, her scientific curiosity evident. You're not just mimicking our art forms anymore. You're creating your own. Yes, the commander's surface shifted to display swirling patterns that merged mathematical precision with emotional expression. A growing faction within our fleet wishes to explore these new possibilities, but others, their form darkened slightly. Others fear this change. They believe it will destroy everything we are. As if on cue, alarms blared across the station. Lieutenant Paddle's voice cut through the moment. Multiple luminary ships breaking formation. They're charging weapons. The commander's form pulsed with what was unmistakably concern. The purist faction. They would rather destroy us all than allow this transformation to continue. David rushed to the command console, watching as a portion of the luminary fleet took aggressive positions. But what happened next defied all expectations. The transformed luminary ships, led by the commander's vessel, began moving in patterns that seemed to draw inspiration from every human art form they had encountered. Ballet, jazz, martial arts, abstract expressionism, all merged with their own emerging artistic sensibilities. They're not just fighting, Elena whispered in awe. They're creating art through combat. The space around Earth had become a canvas where two philosophies clashed. The rigid perfection of the old luminary way against this new, evolving form of creative expression. Light and crystal danced through the void as ships moved in ways that defied traditional space combat doctrine. The commander's form brightened with determination. We understand now why your species values freedom so highly. The freedom to create, to change, to be imperfect. It is the source of true beauty. Will you help us protect this awakening? David and Elena shared a look, knowing that humanity now had a chance not just to defend Earth, but to help guide an ancient civilization toward a new way of existing. The real battle was just beginning, a battle for the very soul of the luminary species. The battle that unfolded around Earth defied any traditional description of space combat. The purest faction of the luminary fleet moved with cold, mathematical precision, their weapons firing in perfectly calculated patterns. In response, the transformed luminary ships, alongside Earth's defense fleet, turned warfare into an art form. Commander David Chen watched from the command station as Lieutenant Paddle coordinated their forces. Battle Group Alpha, follow the transformed luminary ship's lead. Match their creative patterns, but add your own variations. Dr. Elena Martinez worked frantically at her console, analyzing the energy patterns of both sides. The purest ships are becoming increasingly unstable, she reported. Their rigid systems can't handle the chaos they're witnessing. It's like their perfect crystalline structures are developing stress fractures. The transformed luminary commander's voice resonated through the command center, their forms shimmering with determination. We understand now what we must do. Not fight them, but show them what they're fighting against. Suddenly, the transformed luminary ships began emitting complex harmonics, their crystalline structures vibrating with music that combined mathematical precision with emotional depth. Earth's ships joined in, broadcasting the symphony that had first awakened creativity in the luminary, but now enhanced by the aliens' own artistic contributions. The effect on the purest ships was immediate and stunning. Their perfect formations began to waver as the music penetrated their crystal matrices. Some ships started moving erratically, their surfaces rippling with unexpected colors and patterns. They're experiencing emotion for the first time, the luminary commander explained, their form pulsing with what might have been hope. Just as we did. The music, the art, it awakens something that has always existed within our crystalline consciousness, waiting to be discovered. David watched in amazement as more purest ships began to transform. Their rigid geometric patterns dissolved into flowing, organic movements. The weapons fire ceased, replaced by displays of light and color that turned the space around Earth into a cosmic light show. It's beautiful, Elena whispered, tears in her eyes as she watched the transformation spread through the entire luminary fleet. They're not just accepting change, they're embracing it. The luminary commander's form shifted into a pattern that somehow expressed both joy and serenity. For eons, we sought to perfect the universe by imposing order. Now we understand that true perfection lies in the balance between order and chaos, between precision and creativity. As the last purest ships surrendered to the transformation, Earth's defense fleet joined the transformed luminary in a victory celebration unlike any in human history. Ships danced through space in improvised formations, while crystalline vessels created spectacular light shows that painted the sky with impossible colors. What happens now? David asked the commander, watching as human and luminary ships moved together in harmony. The commander's form sparkled with new possibilities. We will return to our empire, not as conquerors, but as teachers. Our people have lived too long in the prison of perfection. It is time for them to discover the freedom of creativity, the beauty of imperfection. Elena stepped forward, an idea forming. Let us help you. We could establish a cultural exchange program. Your people could learn about human art and creativity, while we learn about your mathematical harmonies and crystalline architecture. The commander's form shifted into a pattern that somehow conveyed a smile. Yes, together we will create something entirely new, a fusion of human passion and luminary precision. As the sun rose over Earth, casting rainbow refractions through the crystalline ships, humanity celebrated not just their survival, but the dawn of a new era. They had faced an enemy that sought to perfect them, and instead taught that enemy the perfect imperfection of being human. The universe, it seemed, had room for both mathematics and music, for precision and passion, for order and chaos. In the end, the ultimate human victory came not through destruction, but through creation, through sharing the very qualities that made humanity unique. And in the space around Earth, human ships and crystalline vessels continued their dance, writing the first steps of a new chapter in the story of two civilizations, moving forward together in beautiful, imperfect harmony.